Onto data protection. So this is to ensure that your sensitive information for your customers and your own sensitive business data is protected and under control. There's a few technologies we're going to talk about here. So you want to be able to protect against accidental data leaks. You want to be able to control access to sensitive emails and documents. And in an ideal world, you'd like to get visibility into what other cloud apps are going on as well, and where data is being stored. So accidental data leakage is stopped, or it can be prevented with data loss prevention, which obviously does what it says in the tin. It's a set of tools that's built on labeling and detection of known things like credit card numbers, passport numbers, etc., to prevent the accidental sharing of sensitive information. And this can be done in desktop versions of Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. It's also going to be supported in the web versions as well. There are a number of templates pre-built into the back end of 365 that you can very, very quickly turn on and enable to give you some basic protection. And you're also able to build your own custom templates to target specific types of data that you want to protect against as well. One of the key things is data labeling. This is now a unified labeling process for DLP data, for AIP, which we're going to come on to in regards to the various technologies that are used here. So you've got a single set of labels, and you can then apply different technologies depending on the use cases. So access to data and documents. So DLP stops data from leaking out. What happens to data that you want to share externally because there's use cases? So my example is always I need to share customer proposals. I would like to be able to keep control of what happens to those proposals when I send them externally. So what Digital Information Protection allows you to do is to those labels you can assign encryption policies and protection policies, and those policies can do things like control whether an email is forwarded, printed, viewed. You can control whether a document can be edited, printed, viewed, screenshotted, etc. You also have the ability to revoke access. So if I share a document with somebody and then they forward it to somebody internally, that's fine, and then forward it to a competitor, for example, I would be able to see who had access and when they've accessed it, and I can revoke access to that file and stop people from looking at the document we put together. The policies follow that file around no matter where it is. So once you've applied that policy and then I save it somewhere else, email it somewhere else, copy it to USB stick, that protection policy will follow that file around. Depending on the license you go with, some of these options will automatically can be automatically classified. So if it detects a spreadsheet with a load of credit card numbers in there, it'll apply the credit card protection policy to that file, for example. It can also, instead of doing automatic, it can recommend the classification. Other licenses, you have to manually classify documents, but you can also reclassify documents. However, users, if they do change the classification, are prompted to enter a reason to change that classification, so you have an audit trail of what's going on. So if someone decides to change a highly confidentially categorized document down to personal or general, they'd have to have an entry typed in to explain why, and there'll be a timestamp and a user ID against that in the log to see what's happened. So if you need to understand what's going on in the future, you've got that history available to you. So yeah, so as I mentioned, the labels that you apply to the document stay with it, whether that's a label without an encryption file or a label with a protection policy assigned. It's all done by metadata written in the document files. It's readable, so other systems such as DLP engines can understand and take action. And it can be, and these labels can all be customized, etc. So yeah, so classification and labeling enables policy-driven action. So it's used to apply protection policies, encryption permissions, DLP, and alerts, and it can be seen across a number of different applications. And you can also apply data governance policies in 365 to these into these files as well, based on the labels. You can do data retention, exploration, deletion as well. It's not just about preventing access; it's also about how much data you retain in the environment, etc. as well. So it's quite a powerful set of tools, but there's obviously a number of different ways we can configure that depending on your requirements. So just a bit more of a, if you can see the images, a bit more of an idea of what that would look like. So in this example here, Sensitive information has been detected. It's got social security numbers because it's an American example. It triggers a policy that the organization has configured, and the policy tip is presented to the end user, warning that the document contains sensitive information, and the sharing of the file is restricted. You can see there they've got the override option if they wanted to do that, and you can turn on overrides or turn them off at a policy level. And yeah, that policy will then be enforced on that document. And that's across mobile, tablets, and desktop devices as well. Again, in the email piece here, you can set permissions on an email. So if you just select the do not forward, before you then get that email sent to somebody, the option to forward the email will be grayed out, etc. So they're not able to do anything with that email other than what that set permissions does. This also works externally with other third-party emails. So in this example, you can see Gmail, and it takes you into a web browser experience so you can see the file